Hello, my name is Jeff. This is 2A Self-Defense Law. What we do is we help people understand the law of self-defense in the simplest terms possible. We take the fear out of getting it wrong. Defensive display of a firearm. I've talked a lot about this. I get a lot of flack back for this, and it's because you don't understand really what the law is about defensive display of a firearm. Now, I had a mentor of mine 4 or 5 years ago during a live class brought this up, and it was a deadly force event, but all the check marks for the AOJ triangle hasn't been checked off yet. Let's just make a little saying or a little story, and I've talked a little about this before. You were in your car, somebody hit you from behind, his vehicle was disabled, and yours, you managed to pull over about 200 or 300 feet in front of him. He gets out of his car with a machete, and he says, "You son of a jackhole, as soon as I get up to you, I'm just going to slit your throat." In a lot of states, you can have the defensive display of a firearm at that point. Some states you can't. If you were in a duty to retreat state, are you going to be doing a defensive display of a firearm, waiting 20, 30 seconds for him to come into your tooler drill area of 21 feet and then shoot him? Well, that's not what my mentor was getting to a long time ago. He was saying that as soon as you see that machete comes out, you can draw your weapon to the low ready. Once he gets a little bit closer, maybe you can go high ready. But once he gets into that tooler drill area, then you can go. You see this lady right here. This, what happened to her, I forgot how long ago. It was probably about 3 or 4 years ago, where she was at a Walmart. She was putting some stuff in her car, and someone came up and asked her for a lighter or a time, or one of the two. And, you know, that is the earmarks of about to get robbed. What she did is she took out her permitted gun, pointed at him, pointed it at some other people, and she was arrested for aggravated assault. Now, we had this comment by Craig, and he has some truths in what he is saying. Too many people have become victims of violent crimes because they waited too long to respond to an obvious threat after their OODA loop tells them to act. Now, part of that sentence was right. It is true. There are many officers who have gotten killed because they failed to act soon enough. Well, you can't do that on the police end, on the civilian end rather. You can't just whip out your gun anytime you feel like it. You have to have a credible, reasonable fear of death or great bodily harm. It has to be credible. You just can't have the knowledge that some people will come up to you and ask your time so they can get close to you, so they can grab you and rob you. He mentions the OODA loop. I used to teach the OODA loop in my classes. Observe, orient, decide, and act. I think it is a brilliant idea. If she was truly in the OODA loop, this person would never have gotten close enough to her to ask the question. He also goes on, a total stranger comes up to you and asking for a lighter time is one of the oldest and obvious attack indicators in the book. Yes, it is. But that act alone doesn't give you license to whip out your gun. For display, and we go for a few more. Let's just go. We are also dealing with flawed 911 system where the first person to get through is automatically the victim. This is true, and I've talked about that. The person who wants to file a complaint is going to be the victim the majority of the time. That's why I say if you're ever in a use of force event, or if you show or have a defensive display of a weapon, you better be the first one calling, because then that makes you the victim. It's not uncommon for you to point a gun at your robber, and 5 minutes later they're on the phone saying, hey, some dude was pointing a gun at me. In this case, instead of aggravated assault, it should be looked at as a defensive display of a firearm, which stopped a potential attack. Yes, John Farnham has a statistic out there. 29 times out of 30, when the gun comes out, the bad guy goes away. Well, that is a tactic that you should be aware of, that if you do this, display the guy, the robber, the gun, he's going to go away. So if he turns and runs away, he is no longer a threat of death or great bodily harm. What John Farnham is trying to get to you guys is, hey, don't pull the trigger after that. He is not saying with that statistic is to bring your gun out willy-nilly to stop a deadly threat, or a potential deadly threat. Yeah, you know something, if some guy was wielding a machete 200 feet away from me and I brought the gun out, those facts are much different than some Walmart shopper coming up to you and asking you for a light. It just is. There is no immediate threat of death or great bodily harm in that. Now, let's just say if she was in the OODA loop and she noticed this guy from 50 feet away. He makes eye contact with her and he has that deadly death stare going on. He's locked on her. He's walking to her firmly. Maybe you'll have a better narrative in pulling out your gun for a defensive display. That you're looking for those visual cues. You have an education knowledge base of those visual cues. That this person is probably going to attack me. Again, you don't need to have an actual fight. You need to have an imminent fear of death or great bodily harm. All right? But you have to have the knowledge to go through it. Again, this is what I wrote. I highly doubt that this woman was active in the OODA loop. This is, with the limited amount of facts in the case, defensive display of a firearm would be moot. There are zero facts of an ordinary force attack, let alone a deadly force attack. And let's be clear, deadly display of a firearm can only be used in a deadly attack. It can only be used in a deadly attack. Or a potential deadly attack with that machete being wheeled around, where you're not in, where the AOJ triad, the ability, the opportunity, and jeopardy, the AOJ triad is a tried and true method of what you're doing. Does he have the ability to kill you? Does he have the opportunity to kill you? And is he showing you jeopardy? Some other teachers will use intent. I get away from intent because that's more of a legal term and it means different things in different incidences. But does he have the ability and the opportunity to kill you? Well, he's 200 feet away with a machete. No, he doesn't have the opportunity to kill you. He's not close enough to you. That's what I'm trying to get into. Are you going to have a defensive display of a firearm with somebody coming up to you and saying, can I have the time? If you truly believe that a person is about to attack you, start screaming, especially if you're in a Walmart parking lot. Stop screaming, say, stop right there, don't get any closer to me. Don't you think that's going to be a better indicator if he keeps on coming at you? Let's just say you start screaming at him when he's 20 feet away from you, and you say, stop, don't even come any closer, I'm afraid of you. Well, an attacker is going to get close to you. A normal, sane person would say, hey, this lady's kind of nuts, I'm going to get the frick out of here. After you said that, and after the witnesses hear that, if the guy keeps on coming up, don't you think pulling out the gun for a defensive display is a little bit more reasonable? Would pass the muster, would pass your narrative and talking to the prosecutor? The other thing I wanted to get into this, and I just made it, if you had time to draw your gun and wait until all the check marks are filled with the ALJ triangle, you just proved more than likely that you had time to avoid. This is something that you have to be resolute in. Again, if we're dealing with the car accident scenario, how long is it going to take for someone to run 200 feet? I don't know. Let's just say he was pretty athletic. 30 seconds? Your car is still able to drive. You can get in and go. Right? You have other options. If you're still in your car, many states are going to give you more legal protections for being in your car if you're attacked by some guy with a machete. There are many other tactical things that you could be doing than displaying a defensive display of a firearm. Time is a huge element. If you didn't have any time to display your weapon, that's a different narrative, isn't it? Compared to, yeah, I had time to display my firearm. Hey, in a lot of states, displaying a firearm could more than likely get you in trouble. Where other states, it's just not. That's a gamble that you're going to have to take on whether or not a defensive display of a firearm is appropriate. But if someone did come up to me, hopefully if I was in the OODA loop, and I saw this guy locked onto me and coming after my car, yeah, I think some more appropriate actions would be taking place. Maybe closing the trunk and getting in the car. I don't know. If he comes a little bit too close, start screaming, "Hey, stop there!" You know, yell at him. Get other people to start looking at the situation. You know, you can't just be putting your stuff in the trunk and some guy scares you and pull out a gun because you're not trained enough. And let's face it, this is exactly what exactly what happened with this woman. This scenario happens all the time. It does. And to justify her actions because it is common for robbers to come up to you and ask a couple of questions so they can get close enough to get a hand on you, steal your purse, your car, whatever, doesn't make it an automatic defensive display of a firearm. My name is Jeff. This is 2A Self-Defense Law. I hope this helped.